So what is your fear of flying? See? It could be any of these: out of control, crowds, claustrophobia. Well, your feet can't touch the ground. Being trapped, birds coming in the engine. There's the security, germs. The last time this happened. So if you tap on fear of flying, it's not going to work nearly as good as if you choose exactly what. And all you have to do is ask questions. What is it exactly that you're afraid of? What is exactly that you're stressed? Because I might be stressed because somebody's not listening to me, where you might be stressed because of something else. It could be the same we could all go to the same movie and watch the same movie, right? And remember different things. Is the movie any different? No. It's our perception of the movie and what's important to us. That WIIFM, what's in it for me? Right? We see the world through our own filter. So you can't just tap on, I have a fear of flying. You can, and you might get lucky. It's like what we were talking about on the break. You might get lucky because luckily your subconscious fills in the dots. And for you, when you start talking about fear of flying, you're afraid of death. When I'm tapping about a fear of flying, I'm doing about out of control. So luckily, our subconscious fills in the gaps. But the truth is if you want EFT to work really well, be specific. Find out what the aspects are. Because what if it's 4 of these? What if I'm afraid of death, I'm afraid of storms, I don't like the sounds, and I don't like crowds? Now I'm just tapping on the fear of flying and I'm dealing with all 4 of those. I'm going to go, you know what, tapping doesn't work. So I got to do one at a time. Those are called aspects. You see how when I was working with Marge, there was 2 different aspects? So you have to separate them. And look, they had different numbers. And look, they went down to different numbers. So if this goes away, let's say this one goes away, she's still going to have this, and she's going to think, EFT's not working, tapping's not working. Because I still feel this. Because you know what else happens? If this one's really, really high, right, it's a 6, and this one was a 5, what if we get rid of this one and this one gets to a 0? This one suddenly seems much bigger, doesn't it? Have you ever, in an accident or something, you break your arm and you're like dying because you break your arm. And you're like, oh my God, my arm's broken, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts. You go to the hospital, they set your arm, it doesn't hurt anymore, and you look down at your leg and there is blood all scraped all over your leg, and suddenly you go, eh! You didn't even know that you had scraped your leg, because this is much more important right now than this. When this gets taken care of, suddenly it's like, ah! Have you ever done that where you're walking around the house and you look down at your hand and you're bleeding and you're like, well, where'd that come from? You're trying to figure out what you scraped and what it is, and you have to worry about it because just something else is bigger. So you have to really work on aspects to be able to know, and to know which is which. And this is also why we write them down, so that you can work on one at a time. So that you can get this down, because until this gets to a 0, this might seem bigger than this one. And you think, well, EFT isn't working. Well, it worked on this one. You just haven't finished on this one yet. And this is as you get through and do better and better at EFT and get more skill in doing it, and how to find these things, how to ask the right questions, then it gets bigger, better and faster. Until then, you just tap on, like tap and bitch, or tap and complain. It just makes you feel better. That's great. I want you to go home and feel better. You don't come to me as a practitioner to feel better. You come to solve problems, right? That's why I get clients, is because they have depression, or they can't tap themselves down on anything. They've been attracting the same kind of guy for 20 years, and they just can't let it go. Or they've been divorced for 30 years, and why do I keep thinking about him? It was 30 years ago. I'm an idiot. That's why they come to me. And so it's just practice. You just learn how to ask more questions, and learn how to ask more questions, and learn how to ask more questions. That's all.
How do you know for sure?
You test.
Okay.
You test. And the easiest way to test is what we call in vivo. If you're afraid of spiders, can you walk up to a spider? If it's something like, I lose my keys all the time, and you don't realize that you don't lose your keys all the time because you're not losing your keys all the time, then something like that is a little bit harder. I do something called, in matrix reimprinting, what I call soul reconnection. It's a whole series of things, and it's womb work and conception and birth, all that learning stuff. And we go through like 4 or 5 sessions, and people go, you know, I'm not really certain what's different, except that I'm standing more solid on my feet, and things don't bother me anymore like they used to. I don't get mad as much. I don't, you know, fear of flying, stuff like this just disappears. Just all kinds of really great things happen, but we're not working on a specific. So when something goes away, sometimes you don't realize it's gone, unless it's something like a phobia or agoraphobia, which is you're afraid to walk outside. When that goes away and you can walk outside, there's a huge difference, all right? But if it's just that like you can't get motivated, you can't get anything done, and slowly you're starting to get things done, you probably won't notice it right away. So in vivo to test for things like phobias and things like that, sure. You know, that's going to be the easy way. But you can just, the easiest way, you know, I might forget. What does that feel like now? It was a 6 and now it's a 4. There you go. Okay? And there's something in EFT called the apex effect, which is it happens so quickly that you don't think it's EFT. I had a girl who came to me she always had to she didn't want to be the first person there at whatever, parties or bars or restaurants. So she always, to the point where she always had to have a friend to pick her up, because that way she's sure that she's not going to be there alone. Right? She came to me one session, tears, everything, pile of tissues. She doesn't feel that way anymore. And I said, so, you know, you don't have to go places with someone else. No. I said, yeah, isn't that great? So EFT, this is what, and she's like, oh no, I've been to a talk therapist for the last 10 years. He fixed it. What about the pile of tissues that there? And she's like, yeah, I thought that was kind of gross that you left it from the last client.
Oh my goodness.
I'm like, okay, right. You know, and that's the apex effect. That's why I write it down, because then I can go around like 10, 9, when you came in here, you know, all right? Because it goes away so fast and it does feel so natural. That's the thing. It feels so natural to you because this is how you feel that you can't even remember what it felt like. I was at a networking, what are those little wine cheese things, and sitting at this table, what do you do? Well, cross between sort of like talk therapy and touch therapy, but it's not really therapy, it's this acupressure stuff. Let me just show you. I said, does anybody have a negative problem? Well, this woman next to me, she goes, the words that started coming out of her mouth, I cannot say. My husband, who left me 10 years ago, all this, the words like we're all getting embarrassed, sailor language coming out of her. And she's very sweet. Normally this doesn't, she's not, when she was around the table, she was talking differently, talking about her husband leaving her. Oh boy, different thing. And I said, so on a scale of 0 to 10, that would be like a 10, right? And she said yes. I said, is it all right if I tap on your fingers? Is that all right? She said yes. So I just repeated the words that she used in her tone, like this, right? Just a few of times, because we're at network, I didn't want to have to do this, so I'm tapping on her. And she breathes, and everything's fine. And I say, okay, so your husband, you know, left you. I said, yeah. I said, so how do you feel about that? She's like, it's 10 years ago. Who cares? And I was like, okay, but, and he left you without any money? He says, well, I got the house and the car, you know, it was fine. Like, and what about leaving your kids? I'm glad he left my kids because, you know, I don't even want him. And I'm like, so all of that is down to a 0. Yeah, but it's always been. And she said, I'm going to go get a glass of wine. And she got and walked away. And I'm going, and everybody at the table, can I have your card?